Hey, Dan, how are you? How are you, Dan? Can you hear me?
Hi, stranger.
Hey, how are you? You don't need me. You got Conway. He's the mastermind.
Yeah, we need you for the okie dokie.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, thanks, Frank, for the link.
Oh, no problem, buddy. No problem.
I guess it was sent actually a week ago, so.
It's all right. It happens. How you been doing, Steve?
Good, how are you?
Good, good. I haven't been bothering you, so I figured, give you your freedom.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You got my email back to you, right?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. It looks good though, doesn't it?
You know what? I wish it could be double. You
No,
know?
I know. We know. Well, then we wouldn't have anything to do next year. It'd all be taken care of this year.
Oh, yeah, there you go. How are you, Dan?
Good, Steve, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing
You're
well.
working hard, I guess, huh?
I guess, yeah.
Well, you
This is
got
busy.
your-
This is busy time.
Yeah, really. You got the high school through.
High school's through. Now the now the hard work starts.
Yeah, no, it does.
I just hope that the rates settle down in the next year when we have to lock them in.
Well, just the last couple of days says they're probably gonna move in the right direction for us.
I hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. Crazy though. My goodness.
Oh, I know. Yeah, this is strange times.
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
well, my deposits are safe because I haven't got 250,000 in any banks.
Yeah. Well, I think the SVB, whatever it is,
Yeah,
seems like they maybe we're a little bit too aggressive in some of the
yeah. Well, they reached out. They were going, I saw a lot of banks do this. They reached for yield, they
Yeah.
they bought these bonds that were a long term,
Yeah.
and that's poison when rates are going
Yeah.
up.
I think balance sheet management in the banking is very important.
Yes, very much.
Yeah, very much. How are you, Frank? Haven't talked to you in a while.
Good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I see Bertrand enough, so.
Yeah. While I have you, can you make sure that new development on Del Carmen Street puts up the plaque for Volpe's birthplace? A couple of years ago, you said that that you were on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was sad that even came down.
Well, I'd like to see it back up.
I agree. Probably not right now. We don't want them to damage it during the construction, but looks like they're pretty much done.
Yeah, it does.
It took them a while, didn't it? Did they have a funding problem or something?
I don't know. I think a lot of it's supply stuff,
Yeah.
frankly. Yeah. Frank Leone, do you have oh, he walked away. Do you have the host key?
No, Phil does.
Phil does. Okay.
Phil Renzi.
I got it. I got it set up.
Okay.
It should be recording.
Okay. It is recording automatically. I just didn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to make you co-host?
No,
Do you need-
no,
okay.
I have make Joe maybe. I have nothing to share on the
Okay.
screen, other than my charming personality, Phil.
There we go. And that's for free. We don't
That's
have
for
to-
free.
We don't need Zoom for that, Steve.
We don't, I know.
Oh, there's Joe. Joe's here. How you doing, buddy? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have at least 5 to start. Yes. I want to get started because I know that Joe, Bertrand, and Phil have to disappear in a little bit. Is my mic on? Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, I'll call to order at 7 PM. And Joe Bertrand, did you have a chance to look at it? At the plan? Do you want us just to go through some items and let us know your thoughts?
No, I looked at it. I think it looks pretty good. It's
Okay.
pretty thorough. I don't have, here and there, I might have a question or something, but go and do
Okay.
what you have to do.
All right, Joe, Joe Conway, do you want to go through this and we'll see if we can get through it as quick as we can before they have to leave?
A quick highlight.
Yeah, the highlights. Yeah, you don't have to get into detail. If somebody wants to jump in on something and comment. So basically, what were we at? 2.45 or something to that effect. We'll see in a minute. I guess it's up to, I guess I'd throw it back at Steve and Joe's opinion and say, what do you think? Should we bring it down a little bit, or we get a little bit of leeway here? There's, as I've mentioned, there's a couple roofs. There's 3 roof replacements on this that apparently are all urgent. The library, the 9 Albion Street, and the town hall. And we have an AC chiller unit on the Woodville that if it goes down,
Station who just shows exceptional commitment to volunteering.
they're done. And then there's an AC unit over at the Doll Bear, the smaller unit that's for the cafeteria, that we all feel are high priority items and are pretty expensive. So we want to see if we can get those on there as well as everything else. All right, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Joe Conway.
Phil, can you let me?
Joe-
share?
Yeah, you can't share if you're not a co-host, right? Hold on,
Yeah, it says it's disabled.
go for it. Yeah. You should be able to do it.
All right, you see this one here where my screen is with my mouse moving around?
Yeah, zoom in a little. Yeah, we see it.
All right, how's that?
There you go.
Nice.
All right. I'm just gonna go quick, so just stop me as we go. Most of us have already heard all of this before. So where we left off yesterday, in fleet, we have a dump truck, 2 dump trucks from my group, one via lease purchase, the other one is straight. An aerator for Dennis Fazio, that's tractor drawn. We have a 1990 sidewalk plow in here. We have a sander and a snow plow. What this is one of our trucks got hit and got totaled. And unfortunately, the insurance company didn't give us enough money to recoup the complete cost of replacement. So this truck is missing those 2 pieces. We have a hot box trailer in there, keep asphalt warm in the winter and even during the summer. The cemetery is looking to replace their UTV. That's basically the yard donkey that does 99% of the work down there. And then rounding out fleet, still in the plan right now, is our yearly free patrol cars for the police department. Into buildings. Sorry, I moved something. Town hall, we have the last 14 windows to replace here, and then that project will be complete. We're also looking to do a roof here. This roof is on the north side of the building, over the building inspector and the town clerk's office. We actually found out yesterday that this is leaking now. So kind of coincidence that this happens to be in here, then that pops up. Second floor, we've identified some rugs that we want to replace upstairs. In the public safety building on the fire side, by the bunk room, the flooring in there is carpet now. This is something that's getting worn out. We want to replace that with VCT tile. It's a little bit more durable. For 5 Common Street, we also have the last little bit of windows there, particularly up in one of the tenants areas that we haven't been able to get into yet. Our buildings group was looking to see if it's possible to put a shed, a large shed or a small garage up at 11 Lafayette Street. As Frank mentioned, at the Ace building, have in here $55,000 to replace the roof there. We talked about yesterday on the senior center. So we noticed that some of the fascia boards and soffits are starting to get punky and rot. So we asked for some money to be able to start taking that apart and replacing it. We whittled that down a little bit last night to see how far this would get us before committing and diving all the way in. At the Civic Center building, looking for $70,000 to repoint some brick, $9,500 to structurally secure the Juliet porch that's sitting over the front doors. At North Ave, we're looking for a Modine heater. This is in our fleet garage for $18,000. An automatic transfer switch. This is essentially, so anytime we throw our building over into generation, there's a series of switches that have to be actually done by hand. So this would be to automate that, so we don't actually have to have an employee or employees doing that. And then in the office down that way, we have some friable tile that's starting to go. So we're looking to pull that up and replace it with VCT. Frank had mentioned at the Woodville School. So our HVAC mechanic here went through a slew of HVAC things and identified this unit as the most important to be replaced in town. The reason being is if it goes down, so does all the cooling in the building. There's no secondary, there's no redundancy there. Our employee here actually started this up when they built the building brand new, so it's original to that when they opened it in 1999, 2000. We talked about the
Joe, can I ask Frank?
Yeah.
Why in the line says 130,000, but the recommended amount is 230?
So 130 was the original placeholder. We were waiting for a quote, and then we were blown away. That's a hard number from.
Oh, that's okay. That's a quote you got. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
No, you see that a couple of times. Sometimes the left-hand column is slightly more, sometimes it's slightly less.
Right.
As these numbers get kind of dialed in, we land on the real deal.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a misprint.
I wish it was.
Yeah.
Let me tell you. The Greenwood School, so we talked about a whole bunch of things here. One of the things we identified when talking about the split systems is that if that project was to go, the electrical service needs to be upgraded into that building. At the Dalbear School, both of the RTU units on the roof were identified as projects to be done. One of them is still in here. We can elaborate on a little bit later. Really, the reason for a lot of these units is the refrigerant in them is something called R22. Slowly but surely, or probably faster than that, that refrigerant is A, getting very expensive, and then B, we're going to get to the point where it's no longer available. So all these units, that are getting into the 20, 25-year-old range, we're going to start between Public Works and the school department looking at trying to get those out. That way we don't get ourselves into a jam if we get a bad leak and we can't get refrigerant to fill those back up. We talked about the Galvin last night. So basically what this PRV is some valving where the water service comes into the building. One of the things that they did when they had the sink issues was they installed a pressure reducing valve there to kind of regulate things. There's only one. So the issue with that is, God forbid that unit failed, we would have to dump the building to be able to fix it. What this is would give us a redundancy. So you essentially create two lanes to feed the building that you can flip-flop between should one of them break. At the Galvin, we also talked about a loading dock heater out back. The only request for the Doyle School was an electrical service upgrade. The real reason for this, the school department got a grant to do some work at the Doyle. They actually put in a commercial kitchen, and for whatever reason, that wasn't able to be included in the grant. It wasn't thought of at the time, but that's actually consuming a lot of power in the building and starting to make the lights flicker and things like that. So we need to bring some more juice in there so that can operate as it used to. The school department last night touched on asking for $30,000 for rooftop unit repairs and maintenance. And correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but I think what Tim was saying is if any of these other options got denied, he was looking to have some money in case a compressor or something like that went down that they needed to replace. And then last in the building section here, the BB Library, they were looking to replace their roof up there. The age of it is at minimum goes back to the addition, probably even a little bit before that. So both the folks on my side and Dave Mason, who works over there, walked it with our on-call roof vendor and got a price for $130,000 to replace all that. FPC, this is kind of just a basket of a whole bunch of different things. Field, park, cemetery. At Betts Field, we're looking to see if it's possible to do some bleachers. We're going to do a whole bunch of work in there, some bathroom work, some parking lot work, and some other things. The bleachers there are getting old. They're probably in less than awesome condition for a little while now. So it makes sense if we're in there to possibly replace those instead of having to go back in. On the common, my group had requested some money to rehab the bandstand. It basically needs a tune-up throughout the whole thing. Needs some woodwork, some fence work, some flashing on the roof, paint job, probably a little bit of masonry when it's done. Last night, just to talk, we're going to bring up the monument restoration again, but that was on our radar too. We'll get into that a little while. It's still in the plan now. Water bubblers, we're looking for $30,000. Essentially, this would be to replace 4 of them, starting around the lake. They're starting to get to the point where they're getting old. Some of the plates on the bottom when they're lagging, the concrete getting rusty and unsightly. Dull Bear School. So the group has been trying to replace a playground a year. This $240,000 would be to replace the smaller of the 2 playgrounds out back, which is more geared towards like your 3 to 6 year old, maybe caps out at first, second grade. In Landrigan Field, my group presented something last night asking to change a whole bunch of deadbolt locks up there. Miscellaneous, just kind of random tools and things that don't fit either building or vehicle, or public place. The buildings division here is looking to see if they can get a floor machine for the civic center. The reason behind this is anytime we wash the gym floor or do anything like that, we do it by hand. If you can imagine, it eats up a lot of time for the individual working there. Buildings was also looking to see if they could get a new copper pro press for our plumber. In fleet, we're looking for 2 lifts. The first one, the 20,000-pound lift, what we've discovered is that the way that we're currently set up, the weight of, say, an F-350 right now, presently our lift won't pick it up so we can get underneath it and work. So if we have to, we're crawling under them. So this would be to do that. And then unplanned, but as we're going through this process, we have a big drive-on lift that picks up all of our heavy machinery, fire trucks should we have to, and that failed its inspection. So that's basically sitting on the floor, not being able to be used. So this mobile post lift would replace that so our bigger dump trucks and stuff like that can get picked up in the air. Also in fleet, our supervisor noticed the police department had some AC problems and they had to send a couple of cars out to get charged. And the price that they were paying to charge 1 car, we could have bought a bottle of refrigerant and done 6 or 8 cars with. We don't have a machine to do that. So they asked if they could get that because, the money savings is just, a no-brainer at that point. To be able to do multiple cars for the price you used to pay for 1. The fire department, they came in, they asked for some high-vis jackets outside of their bunker gear. I think more related to EMS. And they're also looking at Greenwood for 12 turnout gear lockers, just so they can store some of their stuff. We talked about some IT things that the group took out. And then just in the enterprises, so we have 1 prior year lease. In sewer, we're looking to replace our high velocity truck, which is basically our pump jetter that does sewer mains, and replace it with a vac truck. To spread the payment out and the hit to the enterprise, we're looking to purchase this over a lease or finance through 5 years. So that $130,000 would be a 5-year payment. We're also looking for another small line jetter to clear out obstructions. At Farm Street, we have 3 main pumps in there. Everything that goes down your drain goes to Farm Street and gets pushed to Deer Island. One of the pumps in there needs to be taken out and completely rebuilt. So that's $70,000 in there for that. And we always carry a line every year in both enterprises for system improvements. So as we're doing our investigation work, our camera work, and then some of the other stuff, ahead of the road paving program, occasionally we'll have to dig and fix and replace some things. So this is just a bucket of money so that, should we have to do that, we have it available to do, a couple of smaller capital projects as we move along. This number is up a little bit just because of the amount of mileage that we're going to be doing, more aggressive than normal. So just influencing that to keep pace. And then in water, we have a small prior year lease, system improvements here. Again, this is something like if a gate fails or, hydrants get hit, things like that. We have some plant process equipment that we need to replace inside of our treatment plant. And then we're looking to do about $500,000 in water. So after all that, that kind of rounds out where we stand at this point.
Frank,
Yes.
can I ask you where you stand essentially in this? Are you gonna be voting tonight or you have another
Well,
meeting? What's your
No,
schedule?
we don't have to vote tonight, but we wanted to get your input on it. Joe Conway, can you go down to the total? We're at
2.4?
2.4. Obviously, 5% up from last year would get us at 2.205, obviously. So this would be a considerable increase. But I don't know. We wanted to throw it at you guys. You can see all the items we got. There's a lot of big dollar items out there that we were hoping to get on without leasing them.
Yeah, I mean, just that chiller increased to 100,000 right there.
Yeah. We have that. That's a big item. You have the Doll Bear playground that turned out to be a lot bigger item than we had anticipated. But yeah, I mean, we got it down to here. We figured we'd get your opinion and look for a little grease, but if we need to get it down, we certainly have another meeting scheduled for next week to get it down even further if we need to. But Joe, while we got you, Joe Conway, can you go up a little bit to the fire department right there? So we have a couple questions. So they're asking for 55 high-vis jackets. It would give all the firefighters a new jacket, which is up to code and, up to date with all the, it's a lighter jacket for a different kind of call. So they're asking us to replace this, but obviously it's a piece of clothing. Would you, and we don't know if that's necessarily a capital expense. What's your opinion on that?
I think it is based
Okay.
upon, I mean, we're talking about safety here. We're talking about, I don't have a problem with it being just because it's clothing versus a floor machine or something.
Sometimes we try to hold it by the rule in the book, by the definition.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't,
What is your capital threshold? I guess that's my question.
what do you mean?
Well, in Somerville, it's 50,000. I don't know what it is here in Wakefield.
Well, we don't have a threshold. We try to keep it, we're talking about making it $10,000. But we don't have a threshold. But if you go down, Joe, go down a little bit to the library stuff. To give you an example, like obviously the library IT tried to throw in a bunch of computers and monitors, and we had determined that those wouldn't be capital items. Those would be operating items.
So did the fire department not want to put this in their operating budget, or, it's just another
Well,
way
they just
to-
asked us. I don't know if they just didn't want to do that, or if sometimes I think these departments, they didn't ask us for anything, so they might say, well,
Yeah,
what can we throw at the wall?
yeah. Well, I usually force them to pay for the bunker gear and stuff like this in their operating budget. So I thought it was a little unusual to see that here. Yeah.
Okay.
That's because you have all that money in Somerville, Ed.
Well, I'm really envious. I'm looking at the water mains. This is all This is cash capital. Are you borrowing for any system improvements or is this it? I says, wow,
No, not yet. So
Yeah.
we
Wow.
did
I'm very envious. You know, system. We're spending 2 million plus a year on that stuff. Yeah.
we're
Well,
trying to build up to that.
Frank, before Phil and I have to leave, and I apologize for that.
No problem.
Steve, what are your thoughts on the 2.4?
It's a little, unfortunately, Joe, it's a little bit rich. Given everything else. I mean, I had that number at a little bit lower.
Yeah, 2.2?
I was carrying 2.1, which is basically very similar to last year.
Yeah,
What are you
but didn't we
basing
talk
that
about?
2.1 on? Excuse me. What are you basing the 2.1 on?
That was I was kind of level funding it from last year. So that's basically level funding it.
Didn't we talk about increasing it every year by a certain
Yeah,
percentage
I
amount?
think we did, and some years we can do it, some years we can't. In my opinion, this year is one of those tougher years.
Steve, do you have this in your fiscal policies? Any like thresholds in terms of capital spending on the?
Yeah, we do on capital spending, but when you add this to our bonding and everything else, I think we're over.
We're over? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But I mean, you know, Ed, this was, and Joe will tell you, God, under $300,000 not too long ago.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, this
Yeah.
is,
Well, when you
I-
mentioned borrowing, see, the other thing we have to think about is the high interest rates. When you go out to market and, you know,
True.
just the expense of that. So that kind of argues that we ought to be a little bit more constrained here as well.
I think there's also some other items that may be covered. We could look some items in this under grants and things like that as well. And there's no guarantee on any of that. To answer the question on the fire department gear, a lot of this turnout gear we have traditionally done in the capital.
Okay.
For better or
yeah,
for
that's
worse.
what I thought. That's what I
Yeah.
recall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that the gear lockers make more sense than the jackets, but let me argue for the jackets.
I don't think there's an argument for it. Frank, I'm afraid I gotta go. But it looks like you may have to discuss cutting some things.
Okay. I'll send it to you when we get it down, Joe. I'll let you know.
Okay, and then
Surprise.
will you vote on it next week or what do you think?
Yeah, at this point, we're probably gonna be voting next week. We'll
Okay,
have a meeting on Tuesday. And I don't know if I'll know then if we're gonna be voting, but I'll invite you if you want, if you
Yeah.
guys want to come to that meeting as well.
yeah, that'd be great.
All right, I'll let you know.
And once again, I apologize.
No, don't worry.
I'll be over.
We have to do this vote tonight because of the MSTA and everything.
No problem. Ed, are you gonna stay on?
I'll hang on. Sure. I got
Thanks,
nothing
Ed.
better to do.
No problem.
All right, take care, guys.
All right.
Thank
Right.
you. Bye-bye.
Hey, Frank Leone,
Yes,
I also wanted to mention that Town Council Chair Maureen Butt has joined us as
Oh.
well.
Hi,
Yeah, we
Mary.
noticed that.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank
So-
you.
so-
I love this. I do want to echo what Steve said. I always love going through this because just all the projects that you guys are talking about is so great. I do think, Steve, as I hear about some of these solar panels on the Civic Center or the Senior Center, that's something we've gotten earmarks for from the state. I think it's worth us kind of some of these thinking about what we asked for earmarks. And then Joe, I don't know if you know about grants out there to cover some of this other stuff, but I would love to kind of go through and kind of think about where we could find other funding for some of this stuff.
Yeah, 100%. At least on the earmark thing. So far, I was telling the group last night. We've asked for 2, we've gotten 2. So I think we're going to ask for a third, and hopefully
They love that. That's like a project that they love.
Right.
I think, our libraries beloved, I think, what is it, the floors or the roof that was on the library?
A
The
roof.
roof, yep.
The roof.
Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe we make a higher number pitch. That's a lot of money, but we kind of, maybe pitch that. I think maybe we could get some support. I actually don't know. Have we tried going through the library? Not that I want to do the whole MSBA equivalent to the library, but have we ever tried, Steve, to get some money from them for renovations?
I think way back in the day, I think that on the roof replacement, it's almost too critical to wait and in case we don't get it, but we can look
Yeah.
at that.
No, that's helpful too. But yeah, we are 2 for 2 on solar panels on some of our buildings. So I think that's
And-
like an easy one that we could write and ask for.
And I think there are some other ones that, Joe and I were talking about, that may be part of our, Wakefield is a green community now, maybe, some grants under the green community, and some guaranteed money there really that we could get as well. So I think that there's a number of items here that Joe and I discussed this briefly a couple of times today to see what we could, as we say, play with.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I think there's some that maybe, to get that number down a little bit, to kind of have that conversation. I also think we're going to start talking, Steve, about the path around the lake and the bathroom that's going in. So I think those vet feel stuff, I think that falls into a larger conversation. And I'm a fan of the water bubblers, Joe, and I know some of them are bad, but we're getting this great new Canadian water truck.
Yeah.
So,
But that won't be there every day.
right. And I wonder about, I do wonder about like pets who need water, because I think they're the ones who mostly use those water fountains. So anyway, I think there's some collaboration that we can continue having conversations about.
So,
Doesn't,
Frank, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go to PBC. I gotta leave. Steve, I have a history. I went back at library a couple of weeks ago, so I have a capital outlay funding history going back to 1998, I believe. So if you want to see it, and it is dire. We've been at 2 million though since 2015, so we haven't had an increase. This 2.1 at this point, after this many years, it's hovered. It's been below. So I'll leave it that we should
Right.
get at least 5%, if not more. Hopefully the
Well,
town
but
can find the
I'm
money.
gonna point out that we also spent
I
2.4 million in ARPA on capital, so.
Well, so the question is, we had sent a letter December 1st to the town council asking for $1 million back that we had a cut
Yeah.
in our capital budget, and this committee never got a response. So I would ask Maureen as chairperson of the town council to please review that letter and just provide us with a response. Just acknowledge it at least. But silence all around was a little like question mark, like why no one even responded that they got the letter. And we really think, I think I'll speak for myself, but as a group, we should get that $1 million back. We cut in the time of need, but there's a lot of funding we do not, if you look at this list, that we are not approving, and that happens every year. And I worry about the cumulative effect every year of underfunding capital. And that year was severely underfunded. If we could find the money either through ARPA or some other way, I think it would be a huge boost to our capital improvement plan moving forward. So, and I want to thank everyone for their time. I got to go vote on high school stuff and spend a lot of money, I think, for the town in about 2 seconds. So
There you go.
I'll see you
That's a
guys.
lot.
I'll be back
That's a
on if
lot
I
of
can.
capital.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
And just for this committee to know, we got your letter about ARPA. It came out after we made our first round of funding. We still have, a little around $2 million left. So we will have continuous conversations. That's why there just wasn't a response. The letter was received. I can acknowledge the letter, but we will have another conversation at a town council meeting about future ARPA funds. We have until December of 24 to use those funds. So, we're being considerate and thoughtful about where we use that funding.
I just wanted to back up with what Phil had said and actually have a question for Steve and for Mirren. The grant money, are we ever able to get access to that money after the fact, retroactively? The library roof is critical. There's no time to waste filing for a grant there. But if we were to go back after the fact, are we ever eligible for a grant in a case like that? retroactively? Spend the money now, ask for the grant in 6 months.
There have been a number, on some smaller items. I think we've done the work and under capital anticipation of a grant and then been able to roll it into it, but I'll check on that. Library is a different animal. There's a different, it's kind of almost like an MSBA thing. There's a different
Right.
system you go through on that. But I do know that that's critical, and sometimes those take, years to get on the docket with them. So, but we can
Okay.
certainly look at that.
One
There's
last quick point, and then I'll leave it alone. The total of 2.4 that we're at now, and I obviously you've talked about cutting it back. I got to remind you, we've gone through this list here of some very expensive pieces of work that are necessary. Were those things not necessary, and had those things been not considered, this budget would have been a lot smaller. So the reason it's where it is now is because of some critical projects that are expensive. So that's an argument, I hope, for keeping it where it is.
I have a question.
Right, Frank.
Can I get a list of the capital projects that were funded by the ARRA, please?
Yes.
Okay. The other point I wanted to make before Joe had to leave is that with the jackets, there's a compelling reason, whether it's funded through capital or through operating, that all across the country they're dealing with these forever chemicals and they want to get rid of them. And the equipment they have now is supposedly carcinogenic. So I think there's some urgency there to protect our first responders there, whether it's capital or not. I think somebody's going to pay for it, and somebody's going to pay for it soon, because there's a lot of momentum on that issue.
I'm in favor of keeping it. I don't think it's that big of a hit that it's gonna hurt us.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think most of us would want to keep it. It's just a matter of, we were trying to establish, a baseline
Priorities.
for capital. All right, so we can go through this list again and start knocking some things off. Obviously, we're down to the last week to ask Joe, after just having a baby, to go and try to find money for us. I think that's a lot, but I'm gonna throw something out to everybody. If we knock off the Doll Bear playground, I think we get pretty close. We always, over the last couple of years, we've been giving the schools a new playground every year. And they're already, this year, we were lucky enough to get money to give them the Doyle School.
Right.
So they are getting their playground. Unfortunately, they're not gonna get two. Well, they might not get two. What is that, Joe? Joe Conway, what does that get us to if we not, and again, this is just my speaking recommendation. It's, if everyone else doesn't want to do this, that is fine. I just wanted to throw something out there before, we spent 3 hours on.
Yeah, but those are only 130 apiece.
What are?
Those are only 130,000.
That one's 240, so that takes it 2.216. So, Mr. Chair, if you'll entertain it, I kind of took it. We had a crash session this morning at my place to try to figure out where we could squeeze some more bucks out of this.
Yeah.
And I threw something together, which I think will get us a lot closer to where Steve's, looking to be in, for all the things considered. Generally, I try to don't interject, but I don't have any problem going through it and at least showing it to you and letting you guys, talk it out if
Yeah,
you'd be so
if-
inclined.
Does anyone have an issue with Joe showing his recommendations?
No.
All right, go ahead, buddy.
No, I do not.
Go ahead.
So, let's see, you can see my spreadsheet again, you see my mouse moving.
Oh, can you zoom in?
Yep.
Please.
Okay, you good? Hang on, I gotta hide some stuff. Okay. So we took a quick ride through this just to see, what we could do, at least on my end. Threw some ideas at it just so we can have a talking point. As far as fleet is concerned, we kind of left that alone for now. The ones in red we'd already taken out. I was just marking those so I could pay attention to my notes later on down the line. So in buildings, town hall, if we remove the floor for now, and then on the fire side, the bunk room floor. And the reason on the bunk room floor, every once in a while, Tom Walsh, our emergency management director, will come into different public safety grants and things like that where we've been fortunate, right? So my group's been able to get some utility trailers from him, lighting towers. But we've also been able to do building projects every once in a while. We were able to do a little bit of some kitchen work over there. So want to have the chance to talk to him about that. He's got connections through the state all over the place. And I think between the two of us putting our heads together for $7,000 floor, the odds or the likelihood of us finding that outside of this is probably pretty decent. So remove that for that. The shed or the garage, whatever you want to call it, we took that out for now. Just as a savings, getting into the civic center. So we removed the brickery point for the time being. I think if we go through another year, we'll be okay. We will probably have to bring that back up next year. Getting into the warmer months, so the heater here at the garage, for now we can table. This is another thing. I don't know if being a green community now, I can leverage some of the competitive stuff in that to get some efficiency, points, and then end up landing on one of these, but I'd like the opportunity to try it. So we took that out. Here, so at the Greenwood School, this is an interesting one that we talked about today. So as far as the feasibility study went, we know we can put AC in that building. The other thing we know is that the amount of money that we provided for it wouldn't get us plans, specs, and documents. We need more to have like an official design outside of bringing in the vendors like we have. So if the committee wanted to still pursue that and set the electrical up so that, more discussion can be had on that, the question was raised of whether or not this committee could revote that an original appropriation and put it towards the electrical service upgrade, and then would knock down that $50,000 request to 15. So that's up for debate. Getting back into the green communities thing that I just talked about. So on the Dalbear School, these two units here, the probably unpopular thing to say right now, but I'm going to say it. We're actually leaning toward being more likely to say don't do that this year than not. We want to try to take a stab at the competitive grants in that. I was actually on the phone with the DOER today for an hour talking to them about all kinds of stuff related to this. And the one thing they told me is, so the town got $189,000 as a designation grant that we can use for anything. We have some projects designed for that. They told me though today, which I did not know at the time, when we go into competitive grants, if we are doing projects on school buildings related to energy efficiency, 7 out of 10 times, 9 out of 10 times, very high likelihood that the school will always win out versus a building like town hall per se. So I think that being said, what we could do is actually put in for a competitive grant to do both of these units at the same time, hopefully outside of this. but we pulled it, just for now, for something to talk. This number here, so this 80-ton unit here, that's gonna end up being a over $200,000 item. And I was on the phone with Dakin today. Again, as I said, I was gonna get an update for this. So I would expect this 130 to fluctuate a little bit too, maybe even go up a kiss. Into the Galvin, and just because the sacrifice is kind of low dollars, the loading dock heater. Again, for a couple of us to get creative and put our heads together to find $6,000 to do this, if we really need it, we probably can do that. We also talked about, the rooftop units, not to step on any toes or, talk out of line, but, I don't think we have any problem between my operating budget here at Public Works and what the school has. If we lose a compressor, we're gonna make sure that we do whatever we can to try to get that back. So is this $30,000 gonna make us or break us? Probably not. We kept the library in. On the bleachers, so we do have a lot of ARPA work going on related to the bathrooms, that Maureen was talking about earlier, parking lot, and a whole bunch of other things down there. What we're hoping is that we can pick up some economies of scale in some of the work that we're doing. And that if there's any money left over, because we get good construction pricing, that we could go back to the town council and say, hey, we came in under estimate, we'd like to purchase bleachers, would you be favorable in allowing us to do that? So we think, at least for this one, let's wait and see what the bid numbers look like, and then come back to it. And really, if we go in and replace those after the fact, we're not going to be too intrusive on that. It just would have been slightly easier to do at the time. But for now, we're comfortable here with this shown removed. On the bandstand, so we talk about earmarks all the time. And Steve, I'm going to speak for the two of us. We're, writing a letter to the delegation. This one to me seems like a home run, to be able to either get earmark money or some sort of historic pres trust, something like that, to be able to do that work there.
A lot of the, if I can jump in, Frank, a lot of the earmarks from the state delegation, specific earmarks in the budget, they ask us to keep those under 100,000. So this is a historic issue. It's under 65. This may be a one that's a nice bite for them to to grant. So.
So we put back in the monument restoration here. And here's the thing with that. So Friday, we're going to be mailing a very aggressive, competitive grant application for $100,000 to do this work. But one of the things we have to do in order to be able to apply for that grant is we have to carry the offset of the project somewhere in our budget and show that, we have a mechanism to fund that. Without that, we won't be able to get that grant. So putting that back in here, and when we get to the total, you'll see how it all works out. We're putting that back in here so that when we apply for that grant, all of our I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and that hopefully they come back and give us, the full allotment of $100,000, and we get a third of the project off the grid.
So we could carry that at 2, Joe, if we wanted.
We can. I'd have to look at the language. So I think what we have to see, I think what it says in it, and Anne has done the lion's share of that. We have to have more appropriated than our portion. So we need 2, even though we show 3 in there. We wouldn't need the whole thing. But then again, if they give us 80,000, we don't want to sell ourselves short either.
Right.
And just to touch on the water bubblers, so I had mentioned, I think I used the one next to the Hartshorn House as an example of why we want to redo these. Past practice, we've done a couple of times in this group, we've taken things and phased them. So we cut some money out of it and dropped this to 20,000 to try to see if we could do 3. We can definitely at least do 2. And if we're close and we can do a third one, we're going to do it. So we moved that. We left the playground in, and we removed the deadbolt locks at Landrigan Field. The flooring machine at the Civic Center, we went back out and actually got a price for one slightly smaller. Still do the same thing, you just might have to make a couple of extra passes. So that was reduced, and then we took out the money for the progress here. The facilities assessment was done the other day. We're pretty sure that one of our local donors is gonna be excited to donate some towards the scoreboard. We left the fire department stuff. So by the time I get to this long speech, with everything included that I just talked about, we get to 2.284 million with everything there. Was basically able to knock off $200,000 from that.
So if you drop the monument down to 200,000, you get us down even closer.
Correct.
So the number you're carrying, Joe, is about an 8% increase. Roughly,
Between the two.
between last year, 2.1 versus that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then just, so if we were to get $100,000 for that, let's say. You'd be at 2,184. And what did I say we were at last year?
2.1. 2.205 would get us to 5%.
Well, 2,184 is pretty good there.
So last year we were 2,187.
Were we?
So fiscal 22, we were 1.9. Last year we were 2.187. So you're $3,000 shy of what you did last year. I mean, that's just a suggestion. By all means, debate it, talk about it.
Hey, Frank, can we talk about the Doll Bear playground and rubber surface?
Yeah.
Which is a big ask, and I get it. And full disclosure, I have one grandchild that goes there, and the second one will go there. And I've been on that playground rubber surface. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe it was me, Joe, that ruined the one back there, the smaller one. I thought it was in pretty good shape, but maybe someone can enlighten me.
Isn't there an ADA issue?
I think it's an ADA issue.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that one is ADA. I think this is redoing it, correct?
This would be, I can actually show you what it says.
This is the one like in between the V of the building there.
Correct. So it's in the back. So it's
Yeah.
it's at the west end of the school.
Yeah, I agree with the other one is an ADA issue, the one down by the field, but I thought this one was already surface. So maybe it's replacing the surface and it needs to happen.
So the way this is scoped, this would be to, our group of public works would demo it and dispose it. This would be to replace all the structure, and the surfacing there.
Are you trying to show a picture of it to make sure I'm talking about the right one?
Yeah, I'm just gonna show you the size of this thing. Sorry, I'm looking for something Dennis sent me. If you can imagine, so this is what the structure would look like. And there was some conversation with the school department. I'll potentially put in the ADA swing. We got a grant for it back there too. This is kind of what that would look like. All this, that's this tan color would be that spongy rubber foam, for lack of a better term. If you bear with me for one more second, I think I can give you a vertical look at it, show you where it lays out. Sorry about that. So this red box and then that swing we're also talking about could actually fit in nicely right here. The pavement is flush with it. It's a very easy transition. Essentially that's how it lays out. So over here in this like right-hand corner, this is where the alleyway goes out to Lowell Street.
Okay. So this is very close to the buildings, Joe?
This one's basically right on top of the building, yeah.
Okay, all right, okay,
That's
that's what okay. That's the one I was thinking of then.
Yeah.
So keeping that in there and adding the monument still gets us where where you would let us be, Steve?
It's not all up to me, but it's
I know.
something, it's something I can, it's something, if the world doesn't fall apart, something I can probably make work. You know, and it's hard now because we don't know where state aid is going to be, right? We don't know a lot of things.
Right.
Um,
right.
And I do like, you know, I do like in general, moving this up, you know, a little bit at a time, and we've tried, and sometimes we can, sometimes we can't.
2.1 was your number, Steve?
2.1 is what I was holding, what I in October, what I forecasted.
All right.
But that doesn't mean that it's,
If you have to get there.
all right, I like it. 2012, you're good.
Yeah, so I will ask for it next year though,
Okay, that's all right.
assuming that this new column calculates correctly.
We'll be back.
Yeah.
Well, I know you'll be back, Dan.
I do think, you know, like Steve's playing the let's hold the line, and that's what he asked from, all the departments and all the committees. But I do think out of all of the budgets that come in front of us, there's the most opportunity to find other funding from here. And it's just going to take, Joe and Steve and other members of the team really, asking everyone, asking the state delegation, Green Community Fund, looking into the library project that, we haven't done since I've been here. We haven't put in stuff. Like, there is opportunity for a lot of this stuff.
I think the problem is, and this is why it's good, it's in an article, is that, a lot of these grant applications are due, now, or, in the next couple of weeks. We don't hear back on a lot of them until after town meeting is done. And the state budget, we will not hear about the final budget if
July 1st.
until after
July 1st is being optimistic.
Yeah.
And some years it's not July 1st. So I mean,
Right.
we were kind of under the gun. So it's good that it's an article and it could be rolled back later on if we needed to. But I think I think that you guys, your committee, Frank, does a great job, and I know it's a painstaking task to go through this. And I know you guys start off about 6.8 million, correct, or so.
We were
So
up near there this year.
yeah,
This one
You know.
started,
If there's always talk about grants, why don't the department heads, follow that avenue?
They do.
Well, I mean, they're giving it to, they're making requests of us, knowing that there's grant money here and there. And I think they might know that it's, grants are cumbersome, they're labor intensive, and you have to wait for a long time.
Well, I think part of it is just the timeline, like
Yeah.
just the timelines don't match up. So we can be optimistic about, state funding for some of our projects, but we just won't get the word till July 1st.
And the problem is, in a lot of these grants, you have to have some sort of a match from the town. You know, and I mean, it happens on FEMA grants. We get, you know, even on things that we get for police and fire. You know, it's you know, sometimes it's a 10% match. So, but you don't know if you're gonna get the grant. You think you might, but the timing is a big issue. So I think they do look for all of these and throw them in when we're talking about, which is what Joe's doing on here. But it's a it's you know, and having an open town meeting does not give us a lot of the flexibility we'd like in a city where we could, you know, vote this on June 29th if we needed to, when we had all our numbers. So
Joe,
I-
your Excel spreadsheet skills are pretty impressive, I gotta say.
I feel it's, you know, this is one of those tools, if I was smart when I was younger, I would have tried to master because we use it every day.
Yeah.
I'm just checking my math, so. Yeah, essentially working it through that, going through what we just talked about, and then, and that's even including carrying the monument at 300,000. You're at 216.
Yeah, that's yeah,
Are you,
that's pretty good.
Joe, is that you back?
yeah, I'm back. Yeah, we're back. Phil and I are back. We just spent 30 million, so don't worry.
Oh, Jesse.
Yeah, this is rounding error.
Yeah, this is peanuts here. We, you know, Phil and I are in the 30 mil category, so, you know, we're not even concerned. No. I had a question, the monument,
Yes,
Go ahead.
you put it 300,000 back, or is that what I heard?
yeah, so, we have to carry funding for this to make our grant application, for the restoration. So
Right. Yeah.
we're applying for $100,000, but we have to show that we have either a match to it.
Right.
Or rest of the funds available to do the project should we get awarded.
I know, Nance sent you the letter.
Right, a good letter
Yeah.
too. I got a lot of letters, so I think, there are a lot of people that are pushing, you know, at least hoping
Okay.
for that behind the scenes. Um,
I thought it was for 150. I thought it was 150, 150.
No, so when we went through it, so the category that fits into, we can get up to $100,000.
Oh, okay.
So the company Daedalus Art that came out and looked at it, you and Nancy probably did it the first time. They came out and did it again. Basically gave us what we needed to put a scope in together, and then you know, they gave us a construction estimate. You know, that what it's going to take to actually do this.
Okay.
They were using 300,000, so we should be able to get a third of the project cost, you know, covered through the grant. We won't know until probably sometime either just before town meeting or just after, though, unfortunately.
All right, thanks, Joe.
There's also another grant, I think it's like 15,000 that I don't think happens until the fall. So that could be helpful as well.
Joe, can you scroll up
Sure.
just
So,
to the
Phil-
main building section? That's all.
So
Thanks.
Phil, while you were out, I basically
So-
was just saying today, my group, we kind of looked at it again. It tried to find anywhere to get us, you know, is there anything else we could jettison from this and be okay with? To bring us a little bit more in line with where Steve's trying to get to, you know, financially. So some of these things in red, we pulled out, you know. for
Yeah,
them.
like, yeah, it's okay. So it's brick pointing, like, I don't think that's a good idea because it's just going to exponentially get worse if water's getting into the masonry and especially in old structures. I really think we do need to, unless that's being funded through your budget and that's why it's out. I really think we need to keep pointing of that old building in there somehow. And how's the 60-ton? I see that's redded out. What happened to the 60-ton?
So that's something, I was saying, I was on the phone with the people from DOER today for over an hour. That is something that I think that will be in the competitive grant stage for green communities. That's something they were telling me today that, you know, when schools go into those projects versus municipal buildings like town hall, you know, they're telling us that the edge generally goes to the schools. So this is something that, you know, we think that we could probably leverage a very competitive application for, and we go out to do both of them at the same time.
Okay,
But
well,
then-
yeah, the original list we had like almost $1 million worth of HVAC, like RTUs, chillers, ACs. So just looking at this list, we're approving a fraction of those asks. And, your team last night explained sort of some of them are, limping along. Is this the one that he replaced 3 compressors on, or is that the chiller on the Woodville? So,
that was the Woodville.
yeah, I just, can't keep on punting these HVACs, because once they go, and it affects the whole building. It's not like just a matter of no water in a sink somewhere. Like, these are major systems. So I really hope that grant comes through, or that money comes through or whatever, that this somehow gets addressed sooner than later, from what I heard last night, I guess, if it's not a grant.
I
So-
think you're gonna see all those R22 units. Obviously the chiller being the biggest issue according to Mike. But all the R22 units will be, barring something else having catastrophic failure or something like that. Next year, those are gonna be on the short list of the next 2-year window. We'll sacrifice some other things to get those out and get them replaced, being 2 decades old, and the refrigerant stuff that we talked about.
I know. So that's where I love, like, we're stacking too many in one year. Like, we should be, a smarter capital plan would be spreading these out over a longer period of time, rather than, being cornered and having 3 or 4 in a year. So,
So I think that was
yeah,
some of the motivation there. So take care of the chiller now.
yeah.
And then next year, the big ticket would be the double.
Yeah, but there's other ones on here too. And if you look at last year's list, we punted a couple HVACs that for some reason aren't. It's weird how some years we don't do a project and then they don't show up the year after. You wonder what happened to them. But okay, I just my career with buildings is to spread these expenses out over time, so you don't get hit with a whole bunch at once. So that's why it's always an underlying fear, especially with HVAC for buildings. So. And my last question, the 300,000, if that effectively does get granted or funded in another way, does that mean we're effectively only approving 1.8 million in spending?
We're talking about the monument.
That 300,000
Right.
at that
Most
2.1.
you're gonna get, Phil, is 100 or 115.
Okay, I think we should approve an extra 100, 115 on top of this amount then, in hopes that we get the grant. So we should be at 2.2 at 5% over last year. This is to the committee, is my belief. I feel we should stay true to that and have the town get into a habit of increasing this budget on an annual basis. I find if we're getting granted, I don't think this whole 300 should be counted towards this 2.1 if we're going to be getting money back. I feel that opens up some money in some other projects here.
Steve.
Well, and you also did get money from ARPA, so that is also towards capital projects, right? That go into.
That
next
don't show up in this
budget.
list, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Right, but
Right.
like, yeah, so Steve's gonna share that list, but that is also going towards the overall total for capital projects.
correct, correct. I'm thinking this list, I guess, Marie, I do right. I get it. Like,
I know,
yeah.
I hear you, Phil, but I also, I want to, like, if we're gonna talk math, then that
Yep.
isn't the total number. The total number is also ARPA.
Hey,
Right, but we're not approving ARPA here, though. We're approving this list that's 6.7 and ask. So that's all I'm referencing. I'm not trying to reference the other capital projects that are also taking place in town outside of this.
Yeah,
Committee.
but opera goes away in a year or so.
Correct.
right, that's why we're trying to spend it mainly on big capital projects that we're not gonna do again in our lifetimes.
So Steve, Phil has the wheels turning now. If they do the grant, could the committee then reconvene and reappropriate the difference?
I think that I think that we have a town meeting article that lists these things. You could go back in the fall and, say, hey, this only cost 100,000 and we had 2,000 that you approved. You want to use it here. I would like to go back. Phil, can you repeat what you said about the Civic Center brick pointing?
Yeah, well, Joe, it just mass masonry buildings like the Civic Center where the walls are just brick, right? There's no systems. With water starts getting in, it starts letting it leaching water. You see all those white stains in the bricks. There's signs. It starts freezing, especially New England freeze thaw. So the more water gets introduced into these mass masonry systems exponentially over time, the problems can get a lot worse and spread out. So you want to keep some sort of spot pointing where this isn't 100% pointing the whole building, but at least addressing areas on a regular basis on these old buildings, because it's a constant problem. I don't know how old the Civic Center is, if it's even 100 years old, or early 1900s maybe. But
Yeah.
so I believe putting capital money into these brick buildings on an annual basis is so important, just to keep the maintenance so it doesn't turn into a problem where the brick is just, the walls are just being destroyed. There's leaks everywhere. I just think with bricks, it's important to continue to pump money into them and perform repairs. And I think if you look around that building, it does show that it needs repairs in a lot of different areas.
Yeah, I think, Joe, I know we pulled it out. Joe, I'd like to hear your explanation, but that is such a well-used building. We've spent a lot of money on it, interior, and we're considering the solar panels and everything. It just, that's something that I would want to, I would not have a problem throwing that back in. I'd push for that. That one. I think that's on the Civic Center, because if it's, I agree, it's just brick and it could be a big issue.
Really, it was just one of the larger.
I know.
ones
Yeah.
Sitting out there to get us down.
Yeah, I know.
We would rather do it than not.
You're being a good soldier, Joe. I get it.
If you do have any issues with that getting to the state that Phil was describing, keep in mind the food pantry is right underneath it.
Yeah.
So that's where that's going to end up.
Okay.
Can you repeat that, please?
So we had talked about last night, Frank, the masonry there, kind of repointing that to make sure that it's as weather tight as it can be. And the Reader's Digest of what Phil just explained essentially is, if we lose sight of that, we're only setting ourselves up for a bigger problem down the road that's going to take even more to try to counter at that point. So, fix appropriately now or wait, create a mess down the road is, essentially what we'd be doing if we deferred on that.
All right, so what is that, throwing that 70,000, what does that get us to?
2,239,875, and then depending on the success of the grant for the Soldiers and Sailors Monument,
Yeah.
that could drop potentially to 2,139,000.
Steve, I think this number would make some people happy.
This number, well, won't make Phil, but I've stopped trying that.
I'm generally a happy person.
You're an
Steve.
advocate, it's awesome.
Steve, you were advocating for 5% last spring too, so don't put it all on me.
I
Like
know.
you understand. I know everyone understands, and I know money's tight all over. I've been hearing the budgets. I know we don't have rich Uncle Joe leaving us a pot of gold somewhere, or at least I don't know about it. So
Neither do I. If you find out, let me know, will you?
just a little bit every year cumulatively, as we all know,
Yeah.
just adds up in a 5 or 6 year period. So that's all I think. That's I think, and then the Band-Aid isn't as hurtful to rip every year.
Yeah, I think this is, the addition of that makes a lot of sense. And gets us to 2.239, and, hopefully we'll get it down with a grant, but I think this is a good number.
All right, committee, does anybody have any issues with any of the items that Joe presented to get us to this point?
I'd like to revisit the cultural center, the Albion Cultural Center. Is that in there?
The
Do
roof?
we-
Yeah.
The roof
that-
is, yes.
The roof is,
Yep.
and how
All
much?
all three roofs are still in, right, Joe?
Yes, yeah, so the flat section of the town hall, the library, and the ACE building.
Yes. Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah, Frank, to answer your question, was that your
Okay.
question, the roof?
Yes, it was. But bear in mind that I I always stress making that building ADA compliant.
So,
And-
Frank, as you mentioned that, we had a little bit of correspondence back and forth on that topic again today. So
Okay, great. Thank you.
constantly being worked on. We'll get it. I'm confident there.
I mean, are we at a point that we could vote on this, guys? Folks? I think David is the only one missing. David, are you here? I think we're only missing one person.
Oh,
David's not on.
David said he couldn't make it.
He couldn't make
Okay.
it tonight.
Let's, I mean,
Have we heard from everyone?
yeah, Joe, what were we gonna wait on? What was the one thing you were gonna find out? But that was about the Greenwood School upgrade. Was that the only thing we were waiting on?
Yeah, no, we're waiting on, a little bit more specifics, related to the facilities assessment.
Oh,
You know,
Yeah,
just
but that's off the list though, right?
yeah, it's off the list
right
now.
now, yeah, but.
Yeah, I'd like to get Counselor Butt's opinion and Steve's opinion on that feasibility study that Tim suggested. Is it worthwhile or is it redundant?
Where is that?
So it's right here. So what,
Oh, yes, no, I
Well-
think feasibility studies should not come out of capital personally. I think it should be an article. If the
Right.
school department wants to do an article on that, they should sponsor it and do it at town meeting.
That's what we've done always,
Yeah.
Steve. Feasibility studies have always been articles.
What if it's not, sorry.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's not a feasibility study, it's a facilities assessment. I think our questions to Tim had to do with whether or not it was like a capital needs assessment or something. I think we were gonna, Joe, were you gonna ask him that? I think, was that the question on that?
yeah, I don't have that. Remember I explained kind of how we do it out of the road, which is geared that way. I'm pretty sure that that's what he's intending on doing is, you know, having an impartial set of eyes look at it, give an opinion on it, and then make a recommendation on how to advance forward, kind of chipping away at the deficiencies.
How to build it into a capital plan, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah,
was what he was
you
saying.
know-
So we didn't know what to do with it. We sort of took it out because we didn't know enough about it, but if he was, we didn't quite know if it was a capital expense anyways,
I think there's
on that kind of
sufficient-
study or something. So we
Yeah.
took it out for that reason, I think.
I think there's sufficient doubt about what it is, and they have ranked it as a tier two
Two, yeah.
priority, so,
Oh.
almost enough said there.
But Frank didn't ask us, I guess. So sorry, Frank.
There you
Um,
go.
Frank, see, he's still on here, isn't he?
And there's still time for people to do their own articles, right, for departments, right, Steve? So
Absolutely.
if the
Yep.
school, I think it's April
Seventh.
10th, the
April
date,
7th. April
7th,
7th, yeah.
yeah. So I guess if somebody wants to follow up back with Tim, if the school wants to do one, there's time.
They just got 275 million, so I'm. not so sure
What's
it's a-
another 100,000, I guess, right?
273.
Well, plus 2 for the feasibility study before, so.
It's true.
So we may be in a position to vote on this.
yeah, you know what,
What do you think?
you know what, though? Why don't we let this, simmer, so then David can have a look at it too?
Okay,
And the next time we meet, it's gonna be quick. I mean, as long
Yeah.
as we don't have any major, there's nothing that comes out of the blue. We should be able to meet, review it one more time and vote on it
okay,
rather quickly. But then, at least this way, we did change a bunch of stuff. Let's let David take a look at it and make sure, sure he doesn't think we tried to pull a fast one on him.
So, Frank, what I'll do is, probably sometime early in the morning tomorrow,
Okay,
I'll clean all this up. I'll get rid of all the color and everything.
Yeah.
And email out through you a cleaned up version.
yeah, but leave everything else that we took out too, just so we can.
Yeah,
reference the case.
Right, so I'll condense everything. I'll put it together. The end numbers are gonna stay the same. At least so
Okay.
it's easier to read, because I added my own little column in here. So you can
Yep.
let that simmer, and I'll have that out by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
No problem. I'll send it out when I get it, everybody.
And then if anybody else on the committee has anything come up that they feel like, again, that they want like additional information,
Yeah,
either through Frank or directly to me, just let me know, and I will try to get you whoever you may need or whatever you may need.
okay.
Frank, can I ask a
Yeah.
question to Ed and Joe Bertrand from FinCom? Like, yeah, Ed, you brought up a great point about setting a capital threshold, and I don't know if there was any guidance. Is it an arbitrary number that we could just say 10,000 or 8,000 or what's, because it's something we have discussed, but I don't know if we formally have like really discussed it.
I think wouldn't that be a decision of the town council, Steve?
On the capital plan?
Yeah.
On the threshold, I think that it would be a collaborative effort that we would, I'd like to do some research on it and talk to them
Yeah.
about it and make a presentation. I mean, I
think it's a good idea. Yeah.
It
Years
normally
we-
would be part of your fiscal policies.
Yeah, I mean, it
Yeah.
is, but I don't think it has that minimum amount in it. And maybe that's a change to it. We talk about spending a percentage of our budget on capital and on bonds, and we've really tried to move, forward on that after being woefully low for a long time. And I think de facto, we've said, hey, that's not capital, find it in your operating $5,000 item or something, but.
You could also ask the opinion of Powers and Sullivan, your outside auditors.
Yeah.
They could weigh in
Yeah.
on that too.
Okay, it was an interesting point, so thanks for that info, something to
Yeah,
think about.
thank-
Yeah.
I might have a colleague or two that would enjoy working on a policy like that, Steve.
Yes.
So it might not be, I mean, not to have it binding, but just kind of
Yeah.
direction for your committee going forward.
More for like the departments too, like you saw how many like $7,000 and $8,000, right? Like, so even if there was like and so that way, even when it gets to us, there may be just,
Yeah. I mean, I don't ever want to stop departments from kind of asking, right? Like I want them to ask, and then it's hard to say no, but I think it's good for them to kind of ask. And then I think, it's Steve and the department heads to kind of see where we can find that money, right? And this capital's one, grants another place, earmarks at the state are another place. So.
Yeah.
But it would make it easier for you. Yeah. If the request didn't even come to you.
Okay, so we have our list. Joe will send it out sorry for Joe, Bertrand and Ed. This is where we're at. I can obviously forward you the list that we're gonna be voting on next Tuesday.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Next Tuesday is our next scheduled meeting. If you want to attend, or Marion, if you want to attend, please let me know, and you can certainly do so. But as far as, unless something comes up, like Joe had said, we're just going to be voting on reviewing what we just reviewed and then voting on it to approve it.
Great. Thanks, Frank.
That's our plan. Again, as long as the committee, we're all in pretty much agreement with that, we're going to mull over this until next Tuesday, and then Tuesday we can vote on it. Is that's okay with everybody?
Putting my mulling hat on now.
Yeah.
And then Steve, this will come in front of town council on the 27th is the plan?
Is that the date that we had? Was the 27th or the 10th? I don't have my budget book with me. man.
Okay.
I think it's April 10th.
I can look it up.
It's the 10th.
I think it
Joe?
was April 10th.
Okay.
But if they're ready and other things are moved around, we could move it around if we wanted to, seeing what's on the docket. So, again, thank you to your committee, Frank. I know it's a lot of work and
No
we have a
problem.
lot of requests.
They're a great committee.
Yes,
We're very
you are.
lucky.
They are.
Thank you for coming.
I have April 10th, Marion.
Okay, great.
I thought-
Yeah, you know more than I do. I only look one meeting out at a time. And just to, you all should have gotten an email, but we're doing our annual volunteer appreciation on the 27th, 6 to 7 before our town council meeting at the high school in the cafeteria.
Okay.
A couple of you came in the past, but please come again, because we do want to recognize you and thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that's it. Before we motion to adjourn or anything, I just want to approve the minutes from last night's meeting. Did everyone get a chance to review them?
I did.
Yes.
I move to approve the March 14th capital planning meeting minutes as presented.
I second.
I second. Okay.
All righty. And again, Phil, thank you for those numbers that you presented last night with the last 30 years of capital numbers that I.
They two hours of reading town reports for the past 20 feet. It's amazing. The old town meetings used to have like 56 warrant articles. They look like they were like 5-day, 6-day meetings. It was crazy. Learned a lot. I saw a lot in there, but I got the info. Steve, I could send it to you if you wanted to see it. I was stuck
Yeah.
in the library for a couple hours, so I did some research. It was just an interesting thing. It's not very fancy, but
That's okay. No, send it. And I'll send
Yeah.
out the, for some reason, my phone wasn't letting me get the ARPA list. And when I get off of that, I'll jump on and Frank, I'll send that to you, the
All right.
ARPA list that has been approved by the town council.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Yeah, appreciate it.
All
All right,
right,
thanks, guys.
thank you, Steve. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Maureen, and thank you, everybody else.
All right.
Okay,
I
have
know.
a
Good
good
night.
night.
All right, take care. Motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn.
Yeah.
All right.
Second.
As Joe
Aye.
Bertrand would say, leave the meeting to approve or something like that. Joe has a good line, a good outro line on Zoom meetings. So,
All
okay,
right.
good night, everyone. See ya.
Good night.
Good night.